Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. Today, we're going to look at the case of William Desmond Taylor, a mystery that has remained unsolved for years. And still, to this day, there are doubts about all the possible explanations that have been given. A Hollywood actor who died under mysterious circumstances and also had a secret life. William Cunningham Dean Tanner, better known as William Desmond Taylor, was born on April 26, 1872. William was born in the city of Carlow in Northern Ireland. He was the son of Jane O'Brien and Thomas Dean Tanner, a former commander in the British Army. He also had four siblings: Dennis, Helen, Lizzie, and Oswald. Because the case is so old, little is known about his childhood and his family. It is known that he attended a secondary school in England where he graduated without any major issues. It is also said that during that time, in high school, he discovered what truly passionated him. And that was acting, since he often took part in the school's theater productions. By 1891, William decided to emigrate to the United States. At first, he landed in Kansas, where he lived in a sort of boarding house on a farm, where you could stay in exchange for work. The next thing known is that by the early 20th century, William moved to New York in search of better opportunities, especially because, as I mentioned, he wanted to pursue acting. There, he met a young woman named Ethel May Hamilton, who was a theater actress and the daughter of a businessman. A short time later, in 1901, William and Ethel got married. Everything seemed to be going well in the marriage. After getting married, they had a daughter named Ethel, just like her mother. And on the other hand, his wife's father, the businessman, had helped him financially to open an antique shop, which William managed. However, not everything was as good as it seemed. Reports indicate that he suffered from depression, stress, and alcoholism, caused by the pressures of married life and his job. William was not happy. Soon, all of this, combined with the fact that he spent most nights in bars and had extramarital affairs with several women, led his marriage into a crisis. But all of a sudden, in October 1908, William disappeared. Or rather, that's what his wife thought. The truth is that this man had actually abandoned her and their daughter. Little is known about what William did during this time. Some sources indicate that he traveled around the United States and Canada, working as a miner, and in his free time participating in various acting groups. Finally, in 1912, he reappeared in San Francisco, but this time under the name William Desmond Taylor. It's not known whether this was just a pseudonym or if he had actually changed his name or forged his documents to leave behind the fact that he had abandoned his wife and daughter. By this time then, William was determined to fully dedicate himself to acting in an industry that was just in its early years, the American film industry, whose cradle was Hollywood. Little by little, William started making a name for himself. He worked on acclaimed films of the era. Let's remember that at that time, silent films were being made. After shining as an actor, he went on to become a film director, working on various projects with the most renowned actors of the time. This is where William established himself as a true Hollywood star. In total, between 1912 and 1922, he acted in more than 20 films and directed about 40. In Hollywood, William was a star, a diamond, a genius, a prodigy, but no one knew that, in reality, he had a hidden past. That he had left his family behind without looking back. In fact, they didn't even know that William Taylor wasn't his real name. He could have easily lived a life of fame and stardom without anyone ever finding out about his dark past. But this life came to an abrupt end, and that led to William's secrets being uncovered. That, combined with the fact that the case of his mysterious death was never solved and never will be, it is in this context, then, that we move to the day of the events. It was February 2nd, 1922. That morning, Taylor's butler, Henry Peavy, entered the actor's house in the upscale Westlake neighborhood, where many of the stars of the era lived. Upon entering the house, Henry found a scene straight out of a movie. His boss, William, was lying dead on the living room floor. William's body appeared impeccably dressed, as always, as was his custom, and at that moment, Henry didn't notice any bloodstains or anything like that. Henry assumed his boss was simply asleep. However, when he got closer, he noticed there was a large bloodstain around him. Some sources report that before the police arrived, a doctor came to the house to examine the body and said that William had died from internal bleeding in his stomach, caused by some virus or a blow. However, shortly after, when the police arrived, they noticed that William had a bullet hole in his back. The supposed doctor who visited the house was never identified. Once the police arrived, they began to analyze the crime scene and collect evidence. Let's remember that this was in 1922, and technology and police investigations were not what they are today. Things like DNA samples and those kinds of tools and options were still a long way off. Even so, from the victim's body, they were able to recover his belongings, such as his wallet, watch, and rings, among other things. This seemed to rule out robbery as the motive for the crime, since most of William's valuables were still there. Investigators later determined that William's time of death was 7:50 p.m. on February 1st, 1922. That is, the night before the day he was found. The next thing investigators did was to look for testimonies from people close to the director and from anyone who might have seen something on the day of the murder. This included his servant, Henry, as well as several actors and actresses from that era, such as Mabel Normand, who had been one of the last people to see William alive. During the investigation, many of the secrets this man kept came to light, such as the fact that his real name was not William Desmond Taylor, but William Cunningham Dean Tanner. Also, the fact that he had been married and that he abandoned his wife and daughter. Honestly, there aren't many more details that can be given about the investigation, because there are practically none. The case attracted a lot of attention from the media at the time, meaning the radio and newspapers, which soon led to widespread public interest. It was the first time that a case like this became so sensationalized by the media, so all kinds of theories started to emerge about who could have been William's killer. It was a sensational case. Also, there was a certain morbid curiosity among people in knowing that any actor or actress of the time could be involved. If you search the internet about this case, you can find all kinds of theories, dozens of them. Some well-founded and others are simply speculation or baseless rumors. So let's mention some of them, the most popular ones. One of the first theories that emerged was that William's own servant, Henry Peavy, was the killer. This was mainly based on the fact that Henry was someone close to William, had access to the house, and was one of the last people to see him alive. It's also important to note that he was the person who found the body. From a more current perspective, it's likely that the suspicions about Henry were also due to his skin color, since he was of African descent. It's not unusual for a black person to be accused for no real reason. In fact, we've talked about a case like that on this channel. Up there, the one on the screen, I'll leave the video in case you want to watch it. It's worth noting, though, that Henry was questioned by the police and was ruled out as a suspect. In other words, they had no reason to believe he was guilty. Another theory involved the actress Mabel Normand and some drug traffickers. Apparently, Mabel and William were in a relationship. In fact, Mabel was the last person to see William alive, since in her statement, she said she had gone to his house around 7:30 p.m. that day. That is, about 20 or 30 minutes before William was murdered. The theory says that William was attacked by some drug traffickers, since at that time, Mabel was struggling with a strong cocaine addiction, and William was trying to help her recover from her addiction. Those who believe this theory say that Mabel's suppliers found out that William was trying to get their client clean, and for that reason, they killed him. Other versions say that it was simply thanks to Mabel that they got William's address and broke into his house to try to rob him. It goes without saying that this theory could never be corroborated through the investigations. The last theory features Mary Miles Minter, a young actress of the time, and her mother, Charlotte Shelby. It was discovered in William's house that he had several love letters written by Mary. It's worth noting that at the time of the events, Mary was only 19 years old and was therefore 30 years younger than William. They had met on film sets since she had been working as an actress since she was a child, and many claim that Mary saw William as a father figure she never had, since her own father had abandoned her, just as William had done with his own daughter. Rumors then began to circulate that Mary and William were in a relationship, but when questioned by the police, Mary always denied having a romantic relationship with him and said that, despite her insistence, William always refused, saying that he was much older. This is the part of the theory where Charlotte Shelby, Mary's mother, comes in. She already had a very bad reputation as a greedy person and was accused of manipulating her daughter to take advantage of her career and get rich at her expense. Those who believe this theory base it on the fact that, when questioned, Charlotte gave contradictory and hardly credible statements to the investigators. However, the main argument for this theory is based on the discovery that Charlotte owned a .38 caliber gun with bullets very similar to those used to kill William. In fact, it's said that when this information became public, she got rid of the weapon by throwing it into a pond. Again, investigators at the time considered that there was not enough evidence to consider either Mary or Charlotte as suspects. The years went by, and with so little progress, interest in the case gradually faded. Over time, entire books have been written about this case, and all of them claim to have discovered who the killer was. But, as we've already mentioned, none of them have solid evidence and are mostly based on mere speculation. To this day, the case remains frozen, and to be honest, there's not much point in trying to solve it anymore, since more than 100 years have passed. Whoever the killer was, they're most likely dead by now. Or in any case, even if they were found, and miraculously still alive, they would, of course, be far too old to be in prison or anywhere else, really. So now, this case will probably never be solved because, besides, even if we found out who did it, there's no way to prove it. But anyway, that's all the information we have for today. So tell me, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. As I mentioned, there's a link in the description to CyberGhost VPN service, where you can get this special deal for just $2.03 a month with 4 months free. It protects your data while you browse and gives you access to blocked content on different platforms so you can stay safe. So I definitely recommend it. With nothing more to add, here are the Patreons and channel members. Thank you for supporting me through those platforms. And with nothing else to say, here's a new video, here's a recommended video. You can subscribe by clicking on my face, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.